Do you want to get started?
Yeah, I think we can get started. So welcome everyone to, this would be what our sort of third webinar in the last little bit around JAMstack. The last two have been sort of pretty high level, just talking mainly about concepts and that kind of thing and showing a little bit of stuff. But today is one that I've been looking forward to for a while, and it's really taking a deeper dive and really looking at actually writing code with Gatsby, how that works with Agility. So certainly this one will be a lot more developer oriented than some of our other ones. But that being said, if there's things that go over your head, that's okay. We'll still try to keep it pretty basic. And of course, if you have any sort of questions that come up, you can post your questions in the chat or just reach out to me directly, James at agilitycms.com, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have around this.
Yeah, and since we're in a Zoom webinar, you can actually, we've already got some stuff in the chat. You can do a wave your hand thing, put up your hand. We'll try and keep an eye on those as we go through. I don't know if you have two screens there and we're in different locations, James and I. I have two screens open, so I'm going to try and keep an eye on that stuff. But the format of this thing will be mostly James talking and me trying to keep up with him in the code thing. So this should be fun. Some live coding. I haven't done that for a little while.
I'm going to be firing bullets at Joel here. So I'll probably look after the chat stuff while he can focus on just trying to not make typos and get stuff to actually work.
Okay, here we go. So, the most important thing is that we're all in this together in this sort of journey of learning. So let's learn about each other as well as the technology. I think that's important too. We really want to hear from the people who attend these webinars. We want to hear your feedback and your comments. And please ask questions. It's okay to interrupt in these things. If you're watching this after the fact as a recording in YouTube, feel free to put some stuff in the comments there, and we will monitor those and ask, try to answer questions there as well. A little bit about us. I'm going to go first. I'm going to talk about James. So James and I are from Agility CMS, which is a headless CMS company. But we really love to teach the world stuff. And we think Gatsby is one of the sort of best things to learn right now as a web developer. Especially when you're looking at learning about headless CMS. Agility CMS is an amazing product for that. Of course, I'm a little biased, but I really have to credit James with sort of bringing the concept of JAMstack to this organization. And I initially kind of had some pushback until I started looking at products like Gatsby and a few others that are out there. Netlify is another one where these are great technologies, and I think it's the next generation of how to move websites forward. And I think that's what James is all about here. So he runs our product division and does a lot of sort of connecting with other technologies and he's basically working on taking our product to the next level. So he's been in the industry for quite a few years. He also does some VR coding on the side, which is pretty cool. So he has a game out there, which I'm going to plug right now. So if you're locked at home and you have it's the Go, right? The Go headset.
Yeah, it's for Oculus Go right now, yeah.
The Oculus Go, what's it called, James?
It's called Dodge Block.
Dodge Block, super great game, a lot of fun. I know he spent quite a few weekends working on it. And so go get that game, jump into the VR gaming, which is really fun.
Well, thanks, Joel. I appreciate the nice little intro there. Yeah, so I'll introduce you guys to our president, Joel Vardy. I've actually worked with him for a number of years now. It's been going on almost 8 years soon. And he's really been, my mentor when I started off as a young developer. So I sort of tip my hat to him for a lot of the things that I've sort of been able to learn and grow over my career. So thanks a lot, Joel. Also, some things you may not know about him is that he's a bit of a modern day Renaissance man. He's a published author, father of 2 kids, and coaches high school football, when he's not doing all the things at Agility. So he's a pretty amazing guy, very inspiring.
Thanks, James. And, since we're all working from home, I am kind of in the alcove between my kitchen and my living room. And you may see my kids walk through at any moment. So that's fun. I will get them to say hi if they do. Okay, let's move right along. see if I can get the PowerPoint to continue to keep working. So today's JAMstack is going to be 3 different pieces of technology that we're going to be working with. First one is obviously Agility CMS. So one of the things when you're building websites, you don't need to use a CMS. You should be. And Agility CMS is the fastest CMS out there and an amazing product, probably because of 2 really, really big benefits that are different from a lot of other CMSs out there. First one is Agility includes something called page management. You'll see a little bit about that today. And I think the biggest point of that benefit from a developer's point of view is you don't have to code all the pages in your sitemap. You can let your editors do that. You code a page template and some module templates, and that code gets reused, and your editors can actually work on the sitemap. So read all about that. The other thing is you can set up really cool content relationships, which we'll see a little bit of today, and you have really sophisticated content sort of modeling and content definitions and relationships between the content within Agility. So that's something that works really well. The next piece of technology we're using is Gatsby. I never know whether to write Gatsby or GatsbyJS, but it's gatsbyjs.org is the sort of technology website where all this stuff sits. And we're also going to be looking at gatsbyjs.com, which is their cloud offering. It's just really amazing product. Probably, I think it's, what was it, James? One of the most exciting new products of 2020, or one of the technologies that you need to learn.
Yeah, I know there's been a few studies done in terms of like technologies that a lot of people are looking to learn, and it's up there as one of the, I think, #1. And it's their GitHub project, the open source Gatsby project, is actually one of the most popular, most contributed to open source projects in the world right now. So pretty great stuff.
The other technology we're going to be working with is something called Netlify. Netlify is a new kind of website and application hosting, which includes, there's some compute, there's some build aspects of it. There's a great API to work with it. And it also has a CDN. I think they call it an application hosting network or application delivery network, something like that. But it's just a great service to deploy to. And you'll see a little bit about those benefits as we work through it. Anything to add on these, James?
Yeah, I think we got one thing wrong. We're actually not learning about GatsbyJS. We're learning about Gatsby, the book.
Yes.
Sorry if there's any confusion there.
Yes, we'll be looking at J. Gatsby and
the great Gatsby, actually.
The great Gatsby and no, a different time. Okay, so let's dig into a little bit about what the agenda is today. So the idea is James is going to teach me how to do web development with these 3 technologies. And why don't you just take us through the agenda, James?
Yeah, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to start off from scratch here, right? I'm going to walk you through, signing up for a new Agility CMS instance. We're going to grab the code that we're using for our sort of boilerplate Gatsby starter site, which already has some stuff in there, so we can look and see how that is already put together. And then we'll sort of, spend some time talking about Gatsby and specifically how our Gatsby plugin that Agility has made works with Agility. So we're going to run Gatsby locally. We're going to talk a little bit about GraphQL. We're also going to make some changes to that project. So we're going to do a couple of things where we're going to sort of add some new functionality in a couple different areas, make some changes, really sort of make it our own in some sort of way. And then we'll sort of wrap it up by actually deploying those to actual public environments that people can actually use. So, I want to show you how you can get preview set up really easily, so that editors, when you're in the CMS, can change content. You'll see that content change in real time without requiring a full rebuild, as well as actually just having our production sites, and also just mapping those back in Agility, so we sort of have this sort of perfect best practice setup for how Agility works with Gatsby and how that is deployed to the world. Yeah.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah, and then we're going to eat pizza.
Then we're going to eat pizza. Yeah. So, and pizza's been provided for everyone. All you got to do is go to your kitchen, find some pizza, and go eat it. That was not funny. Okay. Moving on. Let's get started. So what do I do here? James, talk me through it.
So, you're already on the website. So you're like 1/25 of the way there. So you want to go and just hit that try for free button, sign up for a brand new instance. Our free tiers are sort of free forever, so you can keep this one, play around with it as much as you'd like. You want to sign up there. Yeah, your O is
Ooh, I can be a
capitalized in your
CEO.
first name.
Oh, that's okay. Is it going to be all right? Okay, company. Let's go Agility CMS. Set a password. Okay, fastest password ever. Passwords must match. Damn it! I already screwed up.
Yeah,
All
that
right,
is
here
a
we go.
thing. Yeah.
All right, next step.
All right. Cool.
That was pretty
Yeah.
simple. Ooh.
Yeah. Give
Project
yourself a
name.
project name. What do you want to name?
Let's just call this webinar hands-on. Okay, because developers always write things backwards. Okay, here we go. And I just click submit.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to make sure you got that blog template selected there. Yeah, perfect. Cool. Yeah, just go ahead and hit submit. So that should spin up a quick little instance for you.
So I just created an Agility account.
You did, yeah. You just get an Agility
Cool.
account, and right now this is actually just provisioning a blog instance for you.
Okay, and it's going to take me right into where?
Wait for it. Wait for it.
Cool.
Boom.
So what is this?
All right, cool. So what you see here is you are logged into Agility CMS. This is the place where all of our sort of content lives. This is the place where your editors will be managing content. And this is also a place where you can get and access your API credentials, which we're going to need momentarily to be able to set up in our website so we can actually authenticate with Agility and be able to access all the content that's within there. So, let's actually just take a quick little breeze over some of the areas in the CMS just quickly, just for those who may not be familiar. So before we dive into code here, on the left-hand panel, I want you to just click on the pages section. Yeah, so what we're looking at here is this is the area in Agility where we have page management, and as you already sort of mentioned, that is something that is a little bit different with us compared to our competitors, and something we feel very strongly about is that editors should have the full control over the sitemap, what pages exist and what is on each page. Whereas a lot of other headless CMSs out there don't really believe in the concept of page management and sort of put that onus on the developer, which means the developer essentially has to manage the sitemap, and anytime they want new pages created or redirects or whatever, the developer has to do those changes themselves. So we're trying to say that's not the best practice way of doing things, and as you said, sort of move to a paradigm where developers are just building tools and the editors use those tools to be able to compose their pages together. So there's pages there. I also just want to flip over to shared content, which is another area that we'll be touching briefly. So this is just a scenario where we have content that is not specific to a page. So content that may be shared across multiple pages or different apps or things that aren't even necessarily websites at all. So here we have a couple of examples of items already. We have a list of blog posts, which we're going to be taking a closer look at. So if you'll see here, you'll notice there's a couple blog posts that are already sort of initialized for us, so we can get an idea of what that looks like. And then there's also another shared content for global header, which has a few properties that are specific to our header that we actually have in our website. So really basic site, just a few things in there. Do you want to just go ahead and click on posts, and let's just take a quick look at what a blog post actually looks like?
Sure. So this is the list of all the posts, and if I click on one, I get to see an individual one.
Yeah, you see the one. You see the actual post, and this is a pretty basic post definition. There's a title, there's an image that represents the post, and there's just a body of text using a rich text area. So nothing too crazy here. And what's great about Agility CMS is you can define any types of fields you want in your input forms. So we're actually going to go through this process a little bit later to actually add some more fields to this. But for now, I just wanted to sort of show that, this is what a blog post looks like. And it goes in here. This is what powers all of that content.
Cool. Now what?
All right. Now let's actually try to connect this content to a website. Because right now, this is just content sitting in the cloud. There's no website associated with it. There's no code connected to it, nothing. So go back to that sort of first page you were on, the getting started page. It's the top icon in the left corner. Yeah. Okay,
cool.
All right. Now scroll down there. You can see we've got a few different sort of quick hitting tutorials for some of our more popular frameworks that we're recommending and building integrations for. So we have Gatsby, Next.js, Nuxt, and just Vanilla.js. Obviously today we're talking about Gatsby, so let's hone in on the Gatsby stuff. So we're going to go ahead and get the code and actually be able to run this locally and see what that looks like. So I'm going to assume that you have Node installed on your Mac. Is that right?
I do.
That's good, because otherwise that would have just wasted a bunch of time. So
I have Node installed and actually ran this command earlier. So I have the Gatsby-CLI.
Okay, so you have the Gatsby CLI also installed. So if you didn't have it, you'd run that command with npm, which would actually install the Gatsby CLI globally. So then you'd be able to use Gatsby commands in your CLI, no matter what directory you're in. But since you already have that, great. Why don't you just copy that code that you see there right underneath, create a new Gatsby starter site. Okay. And so this command is Gatsby new. You'll see there's it's the format of that is Gatsby new, and then like the name of the folder that you want to put that into. So I might recommend that maybe you just change the name there.
Okay. Hang on, I'm going to jump into a folder. Can I do a make? Do I need to do a make dir or no? It's going to make me. It's going to make a folder.
It's going to make a directory based on that folder. So why don't you call it webinar Gatsby or something like that? Yeah. Webinar awesome Gatsby. Cool. Sure. Okay, yeah, cool. That sounds good.
Now,
so go ahead.
Now I click enter.
Yep. Go ahead. Hit enter. So what this is going to do is this is actually going to pull the source code from our starter site, and it's just going to put it in the directory that you specify here. So you're going to have a directory here afterwards called webinar awesome Gatsby, which is going to have all of your code. You know what? While this is running, because this might take like up to a minute or something like that, because it's downloading code, it's also running npm install to get all the dependencies. While this is running, why don't you open up a browser there and go to your GitHub repository. We're going to initialize a repository where we're going to connect this to, so that you've got your own place to submit your own changes, and so that all the changes we do today, you can commit to your own GitHub repository.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I do have a GitHub account, so people need to create a GitHub account if they don't have one.
Yeah. If you don't have one, if you're going through this process, take the time to create a GitHub account. If you already have one, go ahead and just hit that plus icon in the top right and hit new repository.
Yep.
And yeah, so this is being created in your profile. You can name this whatever you'd like. Yeah, maybe keep it the same name just for good consistency.
I don't know what I called it. I forget already.
Doesn't matter.
Is that because I'm old?
It doesn't, maybe.
Hey, you're supposed to say unabashedly no. Okay, so I can also do a public or private. It used to be you have to pay for private, but private is free now because GitHub just got more awesome. It's pretty cool.
Man, thank you, Microsoft.
Then I just go, but I'm going to make it public because I don't care, and I'm going to go create a repository.
Yeah, and leave it blank. Yeah, so you're creating a blank repository, and then you'll actually see here that there's a you see the code that says push an existing repository from the command line.
Yep.
Just copy that to your clipboard because we're going to execute those commands. Of course, this also assumes that you have Git installed globally as well, which I'm pretty sure you do.
I do.
But yeah, note to self, if you get an error here, you might need to take a time to install Git locally.
Okay, so I jump back to my terminal window.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, just as a comment, I started writing code back in the 90s in terminal windows. And then I went to, a bunch of other things like Eclipse and Visual Studio where we didn't run things in terminal windows nearly as much. And now we're back to running things in terminal windows again with CLIs and stuff. But I actually love it because it means that once you learn this stuff, actually writing your DevOps routines gets a lot easier because you're just using the same CLI routines that you use to build everything. So that's kind of cool. That's just an old guy's perspective. Okay.
Yeah. Well, actually, to touch on that point, GUIs have gotten so complicated over the years. Like, take a look at Photoshop. How many drop downs and buttons, and you don't even know where the heck anything is. So I
use the Photoshop CLI. Wait, I don't even know it's a thing. That's probably is a thing, actually. Anyway,
that one's probably done it.
Yep.
All right, cool. So now you're in your folder here. So we're gonna go ahead and actually just paste those commands in that you want to run. So we're going to add a remote where we're essentially telling your project is, hey, connect this to this repository you just created. And it's pushing all that up there. Great.
So if I refresh this now.
If you refresh that, you actually should see all of the code that was just, perfect. All your code's in there. So you essentially just have a copy of what was already there. But start, I say, in your own GitHub. So you're off to the races now. At this point, you want to actually open this up in, actually, you don't have to do this yet, but why don't you just run Gatsby develop? This will start running the site and we can see what it's like. And then after that, we'll open up a code editor so we can actually, inspect the code that's run.
Cool.
So Gatsby develop is the command that you run in Gatsby to run your site locally. Keep that in mind. You don't run that on a production web server. Oh, right. We forgot a step here. So if you scroll up, you'll actually see that there is some errors that occurred.
In the red. Boo, doesn't like your things.
Yeah. So
You're
if we
a terrible
actually
teacher, this is all bad. This is supposed to be so good.
Yeah, so if you look at the error message there, it says you must provide a GUID. So what we forgot to do here, what I forgot to do was tell you to configure a couple API credentials from Agility. So what just happened is we tried to run the site, but we're hitting the Agility API with unauthenticated requests. So go back into Agility. And if you scroll up there, there is a button that says API keys. There you go. And so you can see there's a GUID there, which is good to make note of. But in order to, we're going to actually place these in an environment file that is only local to your machine. So we're not sharing this when you actually deploy this, or sorry, when you check this into GitHub, your credentials don't get publicly stored in GitHub, which is never a good thing. Open up VS Code to the folder where you created this project, and we're going to modify a file here.
You also should have Visual Studio Code. You don't need to use Visual Studio Code, but it's a great editor that's really, really simple and fast to get all this stuff done. So I'm going to go ahead and open that folder. If I was on Windows, there's a way to quickly open it from there, but I'm not on Windows. I'm on a much better
I think you can do it in
system.
Mac too. But what Joel's talking about is if you're on the command line and you're already in the folder that you're working on, you're like, I just want to open this up in VS Code. If you just type in code space period, hit enter, it'll open up VS Code in that folder. I know it works out of the box in Windows, but I think you might need to do some weird thing on Mac to get that to work. But yeah. So anyways, you're in the project now, which is good.
This is what you were talking about for my environment.
Yeah. So in the root there, you'll see that there's 2 example files of environments. And so these are here as a guide. But the first thing you want to do is you want to create your local environment. So you're going to rename that to just .env.development. And so these are the environment variables that will get used when you run your site using Gatsby develop. So when you're running it locally, these are the credentials it's going to use. What we typically recommend here is that you're going to want to paste your Agility GUID in there. So you can go ahead and copy that, paste that directly in there. The next thing you're going to want to enter is the Agility API key. When you're running that locally, you're going to want to use the preview key. That's our recommendation. So that way you can make changes in the CMS without publishing it and see it in your development environment.
I'm going to put the preview key into my development.
Correct.
And development.
Yeah. And you'll notice there is another environment variable that's there that says Agility API is preview. So if you decide you didn't want to use the preview key and you wanted to use the live key, you could set that to false. But we'll leave that at true for now. And then go back to production and let's just double check that you've got, go ahead, copy that live API key. Paste that in there.
So this is how the code that's in this thing is going to actually be authenticated and talk to the Agility backend.
Yes, cool. That's correct. Yes. Our source plugin actually does that for you. You don't really need to worry about that too much. You just got to make sure you put these keys in the right place.
Cool.
So now that you've got those saved, go back to your command line and rerun that command again, and it should complete without error this time.
Oh, I'm seeing some green. There's no red. It's all green. So Gatsby is doing what here?
Yeah, great question. So, and actually, if you scroll up, I can sort of walk you through what's happening here. So if you're looking at that console there, you'll see that there's a few things that sort of happen internally in Gatsby to sort of start the project up. But there's then stuff that Agility does. Agility uses our sync API to actually pull down all of the content from the CMS. And it'll only pull down what has changed in your file system, which is pretty cool. So it's super fast. The first time you run it, you have a really large site, it may take a bit of time, but the next times you run it, it'll be incremental from there. And then it sort of goes through, pulls all the content, puts that into GraphQL, which we'll look at shortly. And then also goes and creates sort of pages for all of your pages that you have in Agility. So our plugin does a lot of work for you. It gets all your content and it generates all of your pages, which pretty much leaves you as the developer to just focus on building React components that are going to be used, that are being used on those pages. So we call those modules, and we'll talk about that briefly. So if you scroll down there, you should see that this site is running, and it should give you a URL there. Yeah, localhost 8000. So why don't you just copy that, open up a browser, take a look. Should be running the site locally.
Awesome.
Bam. Cool. So we got the site running locally. That's a good start. The other thing, the thing I want to show you is sort of where all the content is in Agility. Obviously, it's already in there on the page, but what Gatsby does is Gatsby has like a local data store that you can query, and you query that using GraphQL. And what's cool is that you can actually inspect through the browser kind of what's in your data store. So if you actually just change that URL from localhost 8000 to ___, is it 3 underscores or 2 underscores?
It's 3 underscores. Yeah, 3 underscores GraphQL. Yeah. It actually gives it to you in the console as well. Cool.
Yeah, actually, there's a great question here from John Doriocourt, saying, since the plugin is downloading pages from Agility every time you execute Gatsby develop, does that mean that we need to rerun that command every time a page has changed, added, or been removed? Great question. I was actually going to showcase that, but the answer is you do. When you run Gatsby develop, that's the time when it goes and resources all of the content. So you need to rerun that anytime content has changed. Now that's just your local environment though. Your preview environment can actually set up a connection with Agility, which we'll actually try to get to today as well, where it'll actually send a message to your preview environment when you change content in Agility, and it'll automatically resource the nodes for you. And because we don't have to download everything all the time, we only download what has changed. It's super fast. So you can see changes happen in your preview environment in like less than 5 seconds.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. So what we're looking at here is our GraphQL. So here's all of the data that we sort of have available into our project, which is pretty cool. I won't go through necessarily everything here, but the points I just want to make is that everything you have in shared content gets created in here based on that definition it's on. So you'll see here we should have a post, so all Agility post. There's also an all Agility global header, which is that other item we had in shared content. And then we also create lists based on your modules as well. So if you need to query data in a specific module, you can go ahead and do that as well. Cool. So, what's kind of cool is that, if you were creating a page and you need to query posts or something like that in your code, you can just start selecting some of the fields that you need here, and then go ahead and hit the play button to actually see all of that content there. And so it's really easy to be able to inspect what data you already have in your local GraphQL store, which is pretty cool. But enough of the GraphQL stuff. There's a little bit more to it than that. So let's go back to Visual Studio. No, not Visual Studio, VS Code, I should say. This is not Visual Studio.
No.
One of the things I want to show you is the Gatsby config. So if you look at that Gatsby-config.js file, I just want to highlight, this is the file where this Gatsby site is being configured with the Agility source plugin, along with other plugins you might have for your Gatsby site. So you'll see up there that we have some code that is accessing those variables that we have in our environment file securely. And then further down, you'll see here, we actually register a couple different plugins here. There's a Gatsby plugin Netlify, there's a Gatsby plugin React Helmet, which is used for some SEO stuff. But then there's also this one here, which has quite a few properties, and that's our plugin. That's the Agility Gatsby source Agility CMS plugin. And here's why we sort of end up passing through our GUID, our API key, whether we're in preview mode or not. And then as well as the languages that we want to source. So you may have multiple languages and maybe you only want to grab data for one language, for example. Channels is essentially the digital channel in Agility that you want to grab content from. Agility has a concept of you don't have to only have one sitemap tree. You could have multiple sitemap trees for different websites in one instance. So this would allow you to be like, hey, I just want to generate stuff for this website, not the other websites. And then there's that master page template there, and that isn't what that's doing is that's instructing our plugin when we generate pages to say, hey, when you generate pages, execute this React component. So we actually have an agility page.js in our source code. So if we take a look at that, let's see what that looks like. Open up source and click on agility page.js. And so here is sort of like our master page, right? This is where all of the pages that live in Agility, where this is the code, the sort of master page file that gets used for all of those. So it's good to know here. You don't really need to change much in here, but this is sort of the entry. If you're looking for the entry point of this application, essentially for Agility pages, this is it.
So it's pretty cool too. You can see that this itself is just itself a React component, but I can tell just by looking at it that there's this SEO thing. That's where we're setting like the header. Mm-hmm. And then there's this preview bar thing here. That's kind of cool. And sorry,
yeah, so we had done a little bit of work here to sort of, add a preview bar component so that when you're in preview, it just has a little preview thing that shows in the top corner, just to let you know that you're not viewing your production site.
Cool. And then I see this thing called Agility Page Template. That's pretty neat. So it looks like to me what's happening is that the plugin says render this Agility page component, and the page component itself it figures out what's all the data in that page, and then it sends it into a page template component. And
exactly,
then after that, then what happens?
Yeah, so it'll actually sort of, you see there's a line of code that says Agility utils build page view model. What that's doing is it's just sort of building up all of the data that we want so we can sort of pass that to the rest of the page. So the next thing you want to look at here is that Agility page template component. If you don't know where that's coming from, if you actually just scroll up, you can see where the import statement is. So if you scroll up there, you'll see there's Agility page template. So that's being pulled from a folder under source Agility components. So if you take a look at that one there, Agility components, Agility page template, yep. You'll see here that this is doing work to figure out which Agility page template to use for your page, because Agility has a concept of pages where you can have a page that is based on a single column template, 2-column template, or any kind of columns you kind of want. We call them content zones, areas where editors can add content. So think of this as like an inner page template as opposed to the Agility page template, which is the sort of the master page template. This is like the inner page template. So for this site in particular, we're only using one template, which is called a 1-column template. So all of this is doing is it's just automatically building up a dependency for it, saying, oh, this page uses that 1-column page template. And so we're going to actually pull in that React component, which we've actually defined in our folder there called page templates. So if you expand your,
well, I don't actually have to edit this normally. Like I don't have
you don't really have to do anything in here, but I just wanted to sort of explain how this is working.
Sure.
Open up page templates and click on 1-column template. So this is what a page template file would look like that you may have defined in Agility. And then here we have a concept of content zones. And this is really taken directly from our ASP.NET integration, where we have this exact same concept of content zones and page templates in here.
So all I had to do when I created this page template, if I created a new one, was just drop in a content zone thing and change the name attribute to whatever the name of that.
Yeah, to the reference name of that page template that you created in Agility. Cool. So yeah, that's a pretty deep level dive. You don't really need to have understood anything of what I just said there, but it is useful for people that want to take a deep dive and say, okay, how does this actually work? But a lot of the stuff is just abstracted away from you. Once it's there, you really don't need to worry about it, but you can always dig into it if you're curious about it. So let's close that up. And now at this point, let's you have the site running, right? Yep. Already, it's in development mode. Let's show how how easy it is to actually make changes in just like CSS and code and see that happen in real time. This is one of the things that I really like about modern JavaScript development is just how fast that is and easy it is to work with. So, why don't we do a couple small changes here? Like, why don't we change your background color from white to like a dark gray or something like that? Just some simple stuff. So cool. For that, I think you're going to want to open up the components folder. And there should be layout template.css. Yep. And there should be a color here that we can change to the background. Now I don't know exactly where it is.
Maybe I'll just search for background color.
Yeah, sure.
Looks like that's one. Maybe we don't have one set up yet.
It's the -- primary. So scroll up. Root -- primary. So, I
don't think so. I think that was a background of a button. I don't know if we have that thing on body. I could probably just do this on body. Line height normally is 1. Why don't I just change it to
sure
background color? What should I use?
Something bold.
Something bold. Brown. There you go. It's beautiful.
It's like ketchup.
Yellow. Well, that's awesome. So I change it in here. I just edit this file, and it just boom, it pops over on the side. That's why I set up that side-by-side view. So that's really cool.
Yeah, that's something to do with agility there, but it's more just the hot module reloading of React that is kind of cool there. So
I'll set it to the color that I normally choose by accident, as opposed to white. I choose wheat.
Wheat. Okay, yeah. You change the background color to wheat. Thank you. So that's pretty cool. And then back to John Dorycourt's question of like, what happens when you change content? So let's just quickly see what happens here. So go into Agility, and why don't you change some of the text that's on the homepage there? So go to Pages,
yep,
and go to your homepage.
By the way, Zoom has my processor at 200% right now, so that's fun.
Yeah, so right now you just open up Jumbotron, which is that sort of module at the top, which explains that has that header, and we're going to change that text. So right now it says React SPA blog template. Why don't we change that to be what it actually is? And this is a Gatsby template. This is not a React Spot template. We're playing with the big boys now.
Boom.
All right.
And so can I use this emoji more? Here we go.
Sure. So go ahead and hit save on that. Wow, that's really weird. I just saw like 10 of your cursors in that video. That's really weird. All right, so now that you've made that change, if you go back into your local host and you just refresh the page, let's see what happens.
Okay. Nothing happened.
Right? Nothing happened. It's the same thing. So
coding sucks. This is awful. I hate this. Sorry.
So this is one thing and the reason why this happens is because Gatsby sources all of its content at build time, not during runtime. So we've already built the site, which means we can't get new content again unless we rebuild it or we resource the nodes. So in your local environment, you want to refresh the content, just stop the site and then just hit like Control-Z or whatever, and then just run Gatsby develop again. And you'll see here that when this is running, because we've already ran this before, you'll see here that it's saying content sync returned 1 item. Sorry, that happened really quickly there. But in the console log, it says content sync returned 1 item. That means our system knows that, hey, only one thing has changed here. So we're just getting that one thing that has changed. So it's pretty fast to rebuild here.
Wait, my browser reloaded automatically.
Yeah, it's even smart like that. So you don't even have to refresh afterwards. You just got to rebuild the nodes. So pretty cool.
I don't get happy like that very often. Yeah. That's really cool. Nice job.
There is also something else you could do, which is like, this is a little more advanced now, but there actually is a webhook that's actually exposed in Gatsby that you can actually just send a post request to, and it'll just resource the nodes again. But let's leave that for another time.
We're not doing that right now. Okay.
No, we're not doing that right now. So cool. We made some changes here. so we've made some CSS changes. We've made some content changes. Now let's go ahead and actually make some like, functional changes in how this actually works. So you see that post listing that's on the website there. You want to just flip back to the website for a sec and just scroll down. So you see that post listing. Here's where we have, it's just listing a couple posts, pretty basic. And we also had looked at our post model in Agility, and it was pretty basic. We just have like a title, description, and like an image, which isn't all that useful to us. So why don't we add something that makes it a little bit more of a rounded sample, which should be like an author. So we're going to add the concept of an author to a post, and then we'll see how that works in Gatsby to be able to sort of pull that associated data in. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to flip back to Agility here, and we need to make a change to our content models. So we're going to go into settings, and you're going to click on content definitions. And what we're going to do here is we're going to create an author definition. So go ahead and click new. And under title there, just give it the name author. And then click on the form builder tab and click new. And why don't you give your author a name field? And that'll be text. So you can go ahead and hit save and new. And why don't we also give it a image field as well? So you can call it image if you'd like, or picture, or whatever. Photo, sure. Under field type there, select image. That's the image type that we're using there. And you can leave everything else default values. So go ahead, hit save and close on that. So our author now has a name, it has a photo. Go ahead, hit save and close. So now we have that new definition. Cool. Now we need to actually relate a post to an author. So, because right now they're just sort of two different definitions. So, but before we go ahead and do that, we're going to initialize a list of authors, and we'll create a couple authors in there just so we have the data.
So what I did there is I actually created a definition of an author, but I didn't actually create an authors list yet.
No. And because the idea there is you could have multiple lists based on the same definition. So, right. We just created the definition. Now we're going to create an instance of that list based on the definition. So go ahead, hit the plus icon in there.
So I went to shared content. I went into here. I created a new content list.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to hit the drop down. My computer just froze up on me. Oh, this is awesome. Okay, here we go. Now
there we
back.
Go. So under definition there, you're going to want to select author. And under the display name there, why don't you name it authors, like with an S, because it's plural. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, hit save. And why don't you go ahead and create, at least one author there. Why don't you create yourself?
I always type it with a capital O. That's funny. Can I upload a photo of myself?
Sure. Okay.
I'm doing that right now. I actually have headshots that I had taken that I'm very proud of. There you go. Look at how business-like and professional I look. There we go.
Nice. All right. So go ahead and hit save and close once you're done with your alt text there.
Okay. Sorry, I had too much fun doing that. Here we go. Oh, the internet just got super slow on me. I hope you guys can still see this. Okay.
It looks actually fine from our standpoint.
Okay.
Now what we're going to do is we're going to relate posts to this authors list. So go to settings.
Okay.
And click on content definitions.
Okay.
And click on post. And click on the form builder tab. Add a new item here. So what we're going to do is, because we're creating a
link.
A link to an author. Sorry, there's like a garbage truck outside my place, which is now suddenly very noisy and distracting me. So because we're going to create a link field here, we need a field to actually store the ID. Now this is actually an update that we're going to be doing to this section, so you don't have to do this step. But so this is a little verbose right now, and I know that, but we're actually making updates. So this will be abstracted away from you in the future. So right now what we're doing is we're just specifying a field that is going to store the ID of our author, and we're just going to save and close this item.
I also checked off hide field from input form because it's a hidden field, right?
Right, which is a good call. People don't need to see the field, so it's just there and it'll be hidden. So
Cool.
Perfect. Now under the field label here, we're actually going to create the property of our actual relation field. So just call that author. And under field type there, we want to select link content, which is a special type of field type, which has a few more options here. So under content definition, I want you to click and select author. And then we want to point it to the authors list that we've already created. So change the content view to shared content. And then under shared content, select authors, because that's the list that we want to point it to. And then under render as, we want to render this as a drop-down list so that our editor can actually select from a drop-down list of our list of authors they want to link to that blog post.
Are you sure we couldn't have put more drop-downs on this screen?
There will be 85% less fields nice. in an incoming update. So I'm looking forward to that. Our product team's been hard at work on that. So under save value to field, make sure you set that to author ID, which you've done. So you can go ahead and hit save and close on this now.
So I just created a link from my post definition to the author content list. Cool.
Yes. And let's just double check that this works. So a good way to test this is let's go to your shared content there, and let's associate both of those existing blog posts to you as an author.
I wrote them both, especially the lorem ipsum dollar thing. Okay, here we go. So down at the bottom. Oh, I probably should have rearranged those fields, but here we go. I'm going to select myself.
Yep.
Here we go. I'm going to click
save.
Cool. It's saving it. And then I'm going to jump to the new one, the other one, and I'm going to save that one too. Yep. Boom. And I'm going to go boom, boom, select item, Joel Vardy. There you go. Saved them both.
Done. Cool. All right. So now at this point, we've added some more data to our thing. We've got the author stuff all linked up. So we're all good. Now let's see how this data can be refreshed in our project. So, what do we do when we change content in Agility? How do we access that in Gatsby? How do
we also just had a question too. Can we source existing content from WordPress or any other CMS site? And the answer to that is yes. You can use as many sources in a Gatsby site as you want. So if you wanted to have, stuff coming from like Twitter and your local database, some other database that you have, and could be from some other web service and from WordPress and whatever CMS, you can bring all kinds of data in there.
Hey, who's teaching this thing? Hey, I thought you knew nothing about Gatsby.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just messing with you.
I heard it on the internet. I heard it in a podcast.
Yeah.
Right.
But that is actually one of the really big advantages of Gatsby, is that it's so easy to be able to source content from anywhere, not just Agility, but other data sources. So even like custom databases and things like that. So pretty cool. So now that we've updated content in Agility, how do we get that to reflect in our project? What do we do, Joel?
So do we now have to, I'm going to close, back in my terminal window. I'm going to rerun Gatsby develop, correct?
Yeah. Yep. You got that. So we're going to rerun that.
Cool. So I can see it's pulling content changes from Agility. There we go. And hopefully normally this is a lot faster, isn't it? Found
it is,
photo.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? It downloaded the photo because you added the images thing.
Yeah. Sorry. Cool. Yeah. So now these are all done. Now we actually have more data we can look at here. Now our code isn't using it yet, but do you still have that GraphQL window open?
I think I do. Hang on.
Yeah, I think I see it there. Yeah. So if you just refresh this page, one of the things you'll see here on your post, if you scroll down a little bit, scroll down. Oh, right, we didn't do that thing yet. I just realized. So you'll see,
I see the author ID, and I see this guy.
You see you have those new fields there. So there's these new author fields that we can now take advantage of. But when we select it, what are the properties there? We only have the content ID of the author that we want. So we don't actually have the author object that we need. So one of the easiest ways to resolve this automatically for us is to just tell Gatsby a little bit more about our content relationships. So if you go back into Gatsby, I'm going to show you how you can do that. So in Gatsby-config, sorry, Gatsby-node, I should say. There's this area here called create resolvers. So what this means is this is a place where we can tell Gatsby to transform the properties that are stored in our GraphQL a little bit. And so that we can actually add a property called like for our author that can actually go and grab that property. Now we've actually pre-written this just so that we didn't have to sort of manually type it out. But if you just uncomment that line there, yeah. So what this line is doing is that we're saying, hey, we're going to create a new property in the GraphQL that represents this post. And whenever we call that in our GraphQL, it's going to go and actually grab the associate author and all the information we actually want for that.
Cool.
So now that you've added that line there, and you can see there's a helper method that we're using, agility.getLinkContentItem. We're telling it the type, which is agility author. We're also telling it to go and use the existing author name to resolve that content ID. So it's pretty easy to be able to add the stuff. Go ahead, hit save. And I'm going to want you to stop the development mode and start it again.
That's the one that gets me a lot of the times. I remember doing this in a different time, and I keep forgetting to do Gatsby develop again. And I continually refresh this window, hoping it'll change, and it doesn't change. So now,
yeah, it's because the resolvers are called when things are sourced. So yeah, when you do make a change there, you do need to rebuild it. Cool. So now if you scroll down our post there, scroll down, you'll see that there's a
computer froze up again. Oh, here we go. I'm back. I'm back.
Under link content, so select that. And so now you can select, click on custom fields under there. This is, by the way, custom fields is where all of the agility fields are stored, just so you know. All of your fields anyways. So yeah, now you've selected name, hit execute. So here we've essentially built a query to query all of our posts and then also get the related author for us.
That's cool.
Yeah. Just got a question from Nick Ham. Gatsby needs a way to serve a project rebuilt automatically upon changes through incremental builds. Help a lot with that. So yeah, Nick, there's actually a way to do it that I've seen. I haven't spent a lot of time to implement it yet, but there actually is a way to set up essentially a webhook that hits your local machine. So when you make changes in the CMS, it could like it'll actually automatically refresh your dev environment. It's a little outside the context of this discussion, but something worth checking out. I'll see if I can write a post about that in the future and share it. So yeah, now we have this information that's now available to us. Why don't we go into our post listing that we have already in Agility? So sorry, not in Agility, in your code. And so if you expand the modules folder, you'll see that there's a post listing.js. Yep, open that up. And so this is our existing query that we're using to populate our lists of posts. And so what you see here is what's called a static query in Gatsby. So we're saying, hey Gatsby, when you're rendering this, which happens at build time and is also rehydrated on the front end, it'll actually run this query. And then that data that is returned from the query is available to your sort of front end component. So this is like your data access method, and your yeah. And then if you scroll down a little bit further, you'll see that we're taking that data and we're rendering the post listing React component.
It's interesting because I see this item here. So Agility, when you talked about it before, the Agility page component actually sends each module this item, which is like, what's that?
Yeah, so by default, when you create a module in Agility, a module typically has properties. The Jumbotron was one example of one. The text that you had changed on the homepage from React SPA template to, I think you called it like webinar heart or whatever. You know, you changed content on a field that's within a module in Agility, and by default, we actually just pass in all of that data as properties. So if you have a basic module which doesn't need to access like a big list of content or anything like that, or have to do anything complex, you actually don't have to use GraphQL at all. We'll just pass you the field properties directly as they are in Agility as a parameter. And those are all accessible in the item property that you see there.
Cool.
This is a bit of a different case because we're not just, because the content we're showing in this module is not specific to a page. We're getting a list of things and we're showing those. So this content doesn't live on the module. It's actually in shared content. So we're using that data instead of data that's directly on the module itself.
Cool. So how do we get the author information into this module?
Yeah, so one of the changes we're going to make here is if you just add right to the end of there, just add a comma. So actually, don't use a comma. That's my mistake. Just put in the name linked content underscore Agility author. I think just double check what it is in GraphQL. Yeah, you already have it there. You pasted it. Perfect. So you'll want to get rid of the quotations there. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I copied the wrong thing. So I should have copied this.
Yeah, copy that. Yeah.
The output. Here we go. So if I just paste that in there, does that work?
Yep. Yeah, that'll work. So now that'll include that data as part of your data. And so one of the things you'll want to do there is just scroll down and just find an area where you actually want to output that author name now. So if you're on a post listing, there is an area here. There should be a post. Yeah, there's a post component. Do you see that?
Yeah.
So you could just add to there somewhere in there. Maybe add like a div that just outputs the author name. So here you could do post dot linked agility author dot custom fields dot name, and go ahead and hit save. And here's a case where you don't need to rerun Gatsby develop. When you change GraphQL queries or your markup, you don't need to rerun your site. So we should actually see your name already show up here, which we do.
Holy smokes, that's so cool. It already refreshed my browser and I can see that it's already got that there. That is mind blowing.
Yeah. So when you, which is pretty cool. So when you change your queries, it's all just instance. You don't have to rebuild anything. Makes it really quick. Yeah. So I'm just doing a bit of a time check right now. It's 1 o'clock. I'd like to quickly just show what it's like to create a new module from scratch. So let's just do a really basic one. And then we'll try to wrap it up by deploying this to a preview environment, seeing how that works.
Okay, so follow along with me. I'm going to create a new module. What should we call it?
Yeah, why don't we call it, let's featured posts. So here we're going to create a new module where we're going to be able to select one or two posts to like feature in a certain area. So you're going to give it a title there. You also want to give it to post IDs and hide that field. And then just, and then create a link content field for posts in general. Set that to link content. Under content definitions, select post. Under content views, select shared content. Under shared content, select the post that we wanted to do. And now select search list box because we want to allow people to select one or many posts that they may want to feature here. And under default sort column, you can set that. Under save value to field, just set that to post IDs and go ahead and hit save and close. And save and close.
So we have this new module and now I just need to go and add it to a page?
Yeah, now why don't you go ahead and just add it to, actually, why don't you create a new page and you can add that module to that. So we'll create a new page in Agility. And
we call it features.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right, so I'm clicking there. Oh, I don't know how on a Mac that I had my activity monitor going over to the thing and my CPU was at 400% now. It's awesome. Okay, doing too much. So I'm going to click add that module. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead of you because because of time. So I click add a module and I choose featured posts. Cool.
And when that module loads, you'll probably just want to give that a title just called like featured posts. And then under posts in that link content field, just if you just type in like,
what What were the names of the posts?
I don't remember.
Here, I'm going to click on edit again. So this will actually show me. So if I just type in
So it's how, yeah.
Okay. So head and head on JS.
Yep.
So there you go. So I have 2 featured posts. I could actually create a new post from here too. So this is really cool.
You could. But yeah, let's just output those 2. Hit save on there. Cool. So now that this stuff exists in Agility, go back into your command prompt there. And again, we have to rerun the site because we need to pull down this new content that was just created. So go ahead and do that.
Yep. So you can see the page sync got a new item, the content sync got a new item. Awesome. Yeah. So now do I have to code up a new module?
Yeah. So under that modules folder there, you're going to create a brand new module there, and you're going to want to name it the same name as your reference name that you named your module. So I think you had named your module featured posts. So as long as you name that the same thing.
I cheated by copying another one. Is that okay?
Yes.
The worst thing a programmer can ever do, but I do it all the time.
Yeah, just change those constant names to featured posts.
Yep, I'm with
featured
you.
Posts. And here, what's going to be cool about this is that we don't need to use GraphQL in this case, because our system is smart enough to resolve these fields automatically for you. So you don't need to, because all the data we have is sort of in here. We can access that. So
I'm going to do a cheat thing. I'm going to show somebody a cheat thing. I know that you hate it when I do this, but I love it.
Oh, so you're just going to console log the props? You can do that, yeah.
Yeah, to make it a lot easier. So first of all, the features just showed up on my global header. That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's cool because our global header code is just smart enough to loop through the sitemap in Agility. And so if there's a page in there, it just automatically adds it into the header, which is pretty cool. So that's always been a feature of Agility, to be able to go through and sort of go through all of the sitemaps. So here, now Joel, you're on your page that has features. You've copied our Jumbotron module, so we're just have some basic output here. Under that console log that you did do, you can actually see all of the data that we get back and we have available already in the module. So, if there was data that we needed to get in this module that is outside of what is stored on the module itself, and that's when we'd actually use a static query in GraphQL to go get the other stuff we need. But in this case, we can actually just access these properties directly in code and just output them as we need to. So pretty cool how you can create new functionality here without even having to learn GraphQL for basic modules. So, here you're going to want to just iterate through your list of featured posts that you have there. And then just like render out a title or something like that.
I really should have typed this code ahead of time.
Oh,
see how I can do here.
I'll proof check it for you. You've got let post, item post, map.
So I'll figure if I do a list item here, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go post dot custom fields dot, I think I called it title, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm going to, now I have that list of posts. Okay. Save that.
And you can just render that, in your return method there. Yeah.
So if I have like a unordered list, and if I do here, my React isn't great, but I think that should work, right?
So what you can actually do is if you uppercase posts, like up top in the actual variable there, uppercase it to posts.
Yep.
Yeah. You can just use it as a standard React component. So in there, instead of doing the curly brackets, you could just
get out of town.
Posts. Yes. Yeah.
Didn't know that. Okay.
Wow.
Cool. Now I hate to even like flip over to my browser, but is it going to work? Oh, I did a boo-boo. What happened? Expected a thing, component, check the render method. It didn't like what you did.
Maybe try going back to what you did.
Okay.
Yeah, try that.
I might have not formatted this properly as a post to work there. Let's try this again. Okay, here we go. Now it worked.
There we go. Yeah.
There we go. Featured posts. I took away that class, and we have an unordered list here. Nice. So that's how we created a new module. Brilliant.
Yeah, we're creating a new module, access the properties. So if you're creating like a basic module that doesn't need to access a bunch of other data, it's really simple to get going here. You don't have to worry about looking anything up in Agility or even how to access the stuff in Agility or anything like that. It's just automatically passed to you as properties, which we think is a great way to be able to code fast. Because really, when you're building a site with Agility and Gatsby, you're just building modules that editors can just add to any page, and everything just kind of works. So less dependency on you as the developer, and empowering the editors more.
Yeah, I love this part of it. I mean, I just want to show you real quick. Like, I love just being able to do stuff in here, move things around, change things a bit, and then it's like it all just works, you know. And I can even use my field set and legend thing that no one ever uses because I'm really old. I love it. Post lists, and then I can do whatever I want. And as I type stuff in here, sorry, I really shouldn't hijack your thing here, but this, like, it's so great that you can do this kind of stuff. And you just see it automatically. That's just from a developer's point of view, it just makes JAMstack so awesome.
Yeah. All right. So I know we have a couple questions. I will get to the questions, but I just want to sort of wrap up our session here a little bit. So now we have some changes at this point. We've done some basic stuff. Let's actually deploy this somewhere and also set it up in Agility so that editors can start previewing and actually working on this site. So go ahead and commit your changes to your GitHub commit and sync. So now you're pushing those changes back up to your GitHub. Cool. The next thing you want to do is let's use Gatsby Cloud for this. This is a perfect way to get this stuff set up quick and easy. And then we can actually also put an integration to Netlify in there and deploy our production site. So let's do that. So next, go to GatsbyJS.com. And log in. You're going to use your GitHub account that you should already have. And you're going to create a brand new site here. So under yours, yeah, go ahead and just say, I already have a Gatsby site. And now here, you're going to want to put the Gatsby project that you have, which is Webinar Awesome Gatsby. So select that, hit next. You can skip this step. Oh, actually, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, skip that step. And scroll down here. So here we are prompting you for the same values. Now, we're going to type in these values again. You can just go grab these from your local.env file you have. Again, the reason why we're doing this is because we're not including that data in our GitHub repository. So we need to tell our hosting environment about them.
Yeah, because these are like how I access this data, which we would like to keep that secure in this case, right? Yeah. So yeah, that's cool.
So go ahead, hit save. And scroll down there. No, keep going down.
Oh, I got
you want to enter, these are the build environments. So this is your production keys you want here. Yeah.
All right, I'll do these real quick, copy and paste. I could have got these from Agility from the getting started page as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Go ahead, hit save, create site.
Done. So this is free as well, right? So I mean, I don't have to pay anything to get an Agility account. Don't have to pay anything to get this Gatsby thing to try all this stuff out, which is cool too. Brilliant. Yeah. So now it's actually doing what?
So now it is actually running your build. So what you normally would do locally when you're running Gatsby Develop, it's kind of doing this in the cloud for you. And it should be pretty quick.
Hopefully.
But you can see what it's doing, installing project dependencies. The first build takes a little bit longer, and then the rest of the builds are cached. They use a lot of cached data after that.
Now, one of the things that I think you were starting to talk about was, and I jumped ahead before you could do something. I'm going to jump to site settings because it gives me a webhook URL.
Yes.
Do we want to hook that up while we're waiting?
Yeah, webhooks are critical for sort of instructing Gatsby Cloud when to refresh your preview environment and when to rebuild your production environment. So you see that preview webhook there, copy that. And then I want you to go into Agility because we're going to tell Agility, hey, when content changes in the CMS, notify Gatsby Cloud, the preview environment, that it should refresh its content. So go ahead and click on settings and then click on webhooks. Create new, paste in the URL, and here just put save events. We don't need the, when you publish content, we don't need the preview environment to change. It already has the latest content anyways, so it'd be redundant. So go ahead, hit save there. your webhook is there. Now go back into the Gatsby dashboard. We should see that your preview environment should almost be done. Where is it right now? It's running queries. Almost there. Generating thumbnails. Yeah, see, the majority of that time was just installing project dependencies, which gets cached. So subsequent builds will be a lot faster than that.
Cool, it's ready.
It's done, cool. So this is your preview environment, right? Yeah, so go ahead, click on that. Let's just make sure this is actually working.
Ooh, I love the wheat background.
Yeah, so we already have our changes here. This essentially mimics exactly what we had running in your local environment, but now it's running in the cloud. One thing we should do here is we should copy that URL and then tell Agility about it so that when editors click preview in Agility, it loads up that URL. So in domain configuration there, select website, and under website domains, go ahead and hit plus. Name this preview. And under domain URL, you can just paste in that URL you had, and just check the box that says preview domain. Go back in there.
I forgot to check the box. There we go.
Yeah. Hit save. And hit save. Cool. So now, when you're in Pages, or if you're in shared content for that matter, if you just go and select posts or your features page, why don't we preview your features page that you had created? So go ahead, hit preview. And you'll see here, this loads up this site in preview mode.
Nice.
Now go back into Agility and let's just double check. Let's just make sure that our preview is working properly, because now what's going to happen is open up that module and change that title from one thing to another thing, something different. Change that title.
I can't type. Now my hands are cold and I'm all nervous.
Pressure's on.
New title. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to click save on that.
Go ahead, hit save. Now flip back to the preview page that you have open there already.
I'm not sure which one it was. Is it this one? Yep.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So what you had called that posts list, I guess, right? Oh, there we go. So that change just happened.
Nice. Cool.
So that happens in real time too. So he didn't even have to refresh the page. It just happens automatically. So that's really cool. And you can, and then, so now at this point, you essentially have a Gatsby site that works very much like a typical traditional site, which, when you change content, the content refreshes. Boom.
I love that.
Automatically. And it was really easy to set up, right? How long did it take? It took literally 6 minutes to set that up and get that working in Agility. So pretty cool. You'll also be able to, if you're on the details of a post and shared content, hit preview, you'll be taken directly to the post details page as well. So preview just works out of the box automatically for these scenarios. The last thing we want to do here is let's get a production version of the site up, something that is just showing the, the latest published content that we actually have. So if you go back into Gatsby Cloud, we can actually enable this really quickly. Again, just a few clicks, make it really simple. If you click on the production tab, Gatsby, we actually had a failed build. What happened there?
Well, I don't think we have enough content because I didn't publish any of the other stuff. Don't I have to publish things?
Oh, right.
I never published any authors.
Right. That's a different environment. Yeah.
So the build section of everything, the production thing, it only works off published content, right?
Yes. And now we have code that is essentially that we have introduced some code that is actually breaking our published version there. The cool thing is that, if you have cases like this that come up, these problems don't happen in production. They happen during build time. So you're like, right. Oh, I have a problem. Let's go and fix this, as opposed to, oh, shoot, let's roll back the deployment. Our site is down.
So I'm going to go through and just publish stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just going to publish everything. I think I need to publish my authors, and then I'm going to go and republish these guys too. There you go.
Yeah, because those are both in staging too, because you had changed them.
Okay, cool. So now I don't think we didn't set up a published webhook, did we? So I'm going to have
we didn't. Yeah, so
re-trigger this build?
Yeah, so in Gatsby here, you can just go ahead and just hit the, I think you should be able to just re-trigger the build from within Gatsby.
Okay, I don't think it's quite finished publishing yet. Let me just see if there's anything else. It says this process. No, I didn't publish this. Did I publish it? Looks like our publishing is taking a little longer than we should.
I don't see anything.
There we go, done. Okay, cool. So should I trigger another build?
Yeah, just manually trigger build. Yeah, build master branch.
Okay. So if I was to go and make changes to my Git project, so to my Git code, and when does that, and I actually check things back in, would that trigger a rebuild as well?
Yeah, the way this is set up right now is any changes that happen in your master branch will automatically re-trigger a build in Gatsby Cloud. So it'll try to do that. Right now, we could take this further by setting up a webhook in Agility so that anytime content is published, a rebuild is also triggered. So we could take that extra step. Or if we wanted to, people could just manually, when they want a change to go to production, they could just go into Gatsby Cloud and hit trigger build, and that's going to kick off a new deployment for their site. So a couple different workflows on what works best for you. Typically, I probably recommend would probably set up a webhook to trigger the build, which is pretty easy to do. There's a webhook in here that you just paste directly in Agility.
It's built.
Yeah, so that's built now. So click on that. That should give us a build URL. So what's cool about this is every build you do, you have a specific URL. So if you click on that, Joel, and there's our site built with all of our sort of published changes.
Cool.
Now that isn't your sort of live URL that you have your website actually on. The last step here is, Gatsby Cloud is great for doing your builds for you and that kind of thing, but it doesn't really provide you a hosting environment for those that's meant to be used. So you do that by adding a deployment integration. So click that button saying set up hosting. And under hosting integrations, why don't you select Netlify? Because that's pretty simple. And just hit connect. So at this point here, it's going to ask you to either create a Netlify account or log into an existing one. And so here you'll just want to authorize that integration.
Okay.
And now you can give it a name.
Cool.
Go ahead, hit create.
It's connected.
It's connected, and I think Gatsby Cloud should automatically deploy to that now, unless you have to do another one, maybe do another build.
So it looks like it's triggering a new build based on hosting configuration. So it's going to build it again.
Yeah. So cool. While that's building, I'll take a moment to address some of the questions that we do have in that we had some people. So this is a question from Roman. He says, have you ever made a plugin that can consume DITA map format, which is XML content format for technical writers, and produce end user content in form of a knowledge-based site HTML doc? I can't say, unfortunately, that I'm familiar with DITA map format. So I'm not entirely sure there, but there should be able to be, there's certainly a way to be able to take data from some source, transform it, and then create an HTML page out of it for sure. But I can't speak directly to that.
There is a plugin called Gatsby Transformer XML, which I think was written to do stuff like that because it's an XML format. So on GatsbyJS.org, while James was talking, I just Googled it. So there's this plugin. It basically does that. So you just need to be able to translate your XML format into HTML.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a great place to go take a look and see what plugins are available. There's tons of different things that it can do all sorts of things for you. So I guess, yeah, when in doubt, search the plugin repository on Gatsby. And then the question here from John, he says, are there plans to add those resolvers that we showed to developer download section of the Agility Manager site? What we are planning to do is provide a way that our API will automatically generate schema types in your GraphQL. So for that, we need to add an API to get schema types essentially, or for all your content model definitions. And then when you source your content, it'll put that in that format, and then we can sort of automatically resolve that content for you. So yes, we are planning to. Oh, my mic cut out because my headset was connected to my phone and I just got a call. It's great. Let me just say that again. We are planning to do that so that the source plugin will automatically create that schema and automatically create those resolvers for you. You'll always have the ability to add your own resolvers, because there can always be cases where it's like you want to do something that is a little outside of what comes out of the box. But for now, yeah, for those link content fields that you want to resolve, you just need to add that resolver there yourself when you need to.
And I would just, while you were talking there, James, I actually went into Netlify and found that website that it got, into my Netlify account, which is also another free account. So it created this website in here. And what's really cool here is I can actually see all the different deploys of this website. There's only one of them, but if I did more, then it would see multiple deploys. So this is where I could actually go and view the different versions of this from Netlify as well. And then I just clicked on this link and I was able to view my website right here. Pretty cool.
Yeah. So that's pretty much, I think, everything that I wanted to cover in terms of getting started with Agility, make some changes, see how the project sort of works and set up, and then be able to set up a preview environment. And you can see there, a lot of things that would normally take a long time, like setting up hosting environments, were really quick and very, very easy to set up, as well as making changes to the project and things too. So to wrap up here, just want to tell you guys about some of the stuff we have going on. We are starting what was originally going to be an in-person conference with a bunch of different sessions and things, but of course, due to the COVID situation, we have moved this entirely virtual. So we're going to have a series of sessions, webinars, not too different from what we have today, on a variety of different topics, starting I want to say our first one's May 7th. Is that right, Joel?
That's right. First one coming up is Thursday, May the 7th. And
they'll be spaced out over time. So I think we have 9 of them all together. And that runs from May until, I can't remember now.
They're every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Every 2 weeks.
Okay. So for a couple of months just into the summer. Yeah.
Yeah. So the full schedule should be released very soon. Agility CMS /community is where you go to check out all of these upcoming events. And there's gonna be actually 2 different tracks. There's gonna be a track for sort of thought leadership and stuff is for digital leaders. And then there's the current track, which James and I have already been starting on, which is for developers. So you'll see the next session that comes up on the 7th is actually for more of the digital leaders in terms of what the content is sort of centering on.
Yep. I urge you guys, if you want to learn more or engage with us, please join our community. One of the ways you can do that is join our community Slack channel, which there's a link to that that you can join on the agilitycms.com/community page, as well as our GitHub. Check out the open source SDKs that we have for different things. I'm sort of looking after everything, all of our open source repositories on GitHub. So if you have any questions or issues with them, let me know. Feel free to open up an issue request as well.
Yep. And then go ahead, go to our website, create that free account, go through the steps that you can follow along. There's a YouTube link that we'll send out too. So we've been live streaming this. We'll send out the recording so you can actually follow along with what we did today and you know, and go through all those steps to get a website, basically the same website that we just worked on. You can get that set up, and this is a great way to work on new websites that you're building. Just as a matter of interest, the agilitycms.com website, we ate our own dog food from our last webinar, and the homepage of that website is actually on Gatsby and Netlify, and the rest of the website is still in ASP.NET. And so there's a blog post on our blog too that talks about that experience of setting that up. But like, Gatsby is ready for prime time. It's a great tool, really, really fast way to sort of build, but also create a blazing fast website.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, good point there, Joel. And so if you want that wheat background color, check it out. Yeah.
All right, and now it's time for pizza. So everyone go to your fridges and grab some. All right, everybody, thanks a lot for joining in. This has been great. Can't wait for the next webinar.
Yeah.
Take care, folks.
Ciao.